I'm about to walk you through how to sell AI infrastructure offers completely from scratch, how to go from 0 to 10K to, your first few paying clients. Okay, so how does it work? Well, you first decided that you want to sell AI infrastructure offers. Okay, but how do you actually get started and what should you focus on? And before I even dive into that, I need you to understand something. It's something called the Pareto principle. The Pareto principle, or otherwise known as the 80-20 rule, states that 80% of outcomes are typically determined by just 20% of causes. Okay, illustrating a common imbalance in effort and results across various contexts. And so what does this mean? It means that 80% of results, so 80% of the outcomes, the outputs, the results that you get come from 20% of the inputs that you put in. Okay, and so what we need to do is we need to identify what are these 20% of inputs, and you need to double down and focus on them. Okay, you need to only focus on what truly matters and cut out everything else, especially in the beginning when you're going from 0 to 1. Going from 0 to 1 is the absolute hardest thing you will ever do in your life. Going from 0 to 10K in your business, it's the hardest thing ever. You have no credit, you have no credibility, no proof, no momentum. Okay, so we need to start building momentum, and we need to focus on the 20% of things that bring 80% of the results. And so what is the first focus that you need to put all your attention on? It's the market. It's the market you choose and the offer you create. This is super crucial. Choosing your market, the problems you're going to solve for them, and structuring your offer in a high value leveraged way is the first and most important, most crucial step in the beginning. Okay. And so what separates a good market, good niche from a bad niche? There's a few factors. The first one is that you want to make sure that the market you're going into is growing and not dying. You want to make sure that they're easy to find online, and you want to make sure that there's at least 50,000 total addressable market. So at least 50,000 businesses, ideally within the US. The next thing, and probably the most important thing, is you want to make sure that they actually have money, that they aren't broke. There's a lot of factors. I have a video, I have a training in my free community. Second link in the description if you want to join my free AI scaling specialist community. We have trainings in there, and one of the ways you can look for to identify if your market has money is what is the total LTV that they collect on average from their customers. Okay, so how much is each customer paying them for their services? And I'm about to break this down in this video. What are good markets? What type of markets should you get into in the beginning? The next thing is competition. The least competitive, the better. Yeah, it's true that you can succeed in any market, but in the beginning, your resources are limited. You don't have as much money. You don't have credibility. So you want to make sure that if you're running ads, you want to get the biggest bang for your buck. You want the cheapest cost per booked call, cheapest cost to acquire a customer, cheapest cost per lead. And what is that? What is the biggest factor? It's how saturated is the market? How educated are they? How sophisticated are they? How high is the competition in that market? Okay, because if you go into a market and you start selling AI, where there's not much competition, then the cost for you to get a lead, the cost for you to book a call is not going to be high at all. Okay, and those are the markets you want to target in the beginning. Okay, and then you want to make sure you can predictably deliver results. Okay, and that's the factors that makes a good market. What makes a bad market? It's completely the opposite of the things that make a market good. It's, for example, if the market is dying, so the newspaper business, everything's becoming digitized. You want to avoid markets that are dying. Next thing is that they are hard to find online. For example, Fortune 500 CEOs, it's damn near impossible to get in contact with any of them. So you want to make sure that the people you're targeting are online, are on these social media platforms, and they're easy to find. And the next thing is that there's less than 50,000 businesses, ideally within the US. If there's less than 50,000 businesses, then it's going to be hard for you to get in contact with them. It's going to be hard for you to find them and hop on a call with them. The last and probably the worst thing, the thing you want to avoid the most is people who are broke, people who don't have money to invest 5, 10, 15, 20K upfront for you to implement this AI infrastructure into their business to, solve their problems. Okay. And so, when it comes to, choosing a market, brick and mortar businesses are by far the best ones to target in the beginning. Why? These are people who have the most money, the businesses like HVAC, home remodeling, roofers. Each thing they sell up front is 5 to 10K, 15K. So they have money. They're providing real solid value to the world. Okay. And they have a sustainable business, and they have money. They have a budget that they allocate towards marketing, and all they need is someone to come into their business and implement a predictable way of getting leads, of getting clients, a predictable way of solving their problems and making their business more sustainable. Okay. So you want to make sure that the business you choose has money, and brick and mortar by far in the beginning is the best one for that. Okay. So you want to make sure that they have the brick and mortar has the most money. It's also the least sophisticated. These people, these roofers, HVAC businesses, they're focused on providing value to their clients, building these systems, providing real value to their market. And so they're not going out, learning how to, run ads, how to create content, what is the best way to market. They're not as educated. Okay. And the markets that are least educated, there's an opportunity for you to go into them and educate educate them and position yourself as an authority figure trying to help them, not a marketer trying to sell them. And I'll show you how to do that. And the last factor is that there's the least amount of competition. The truth is that brick and mortar businesses, these aren't necessarily sexy businesses to target. Most people target agency owners or high ticket coaches, people looking to start a business. Why? Because it's a sexy business to get into. You look cool, you get more followers, you flex your Rolex, your Lambo. But the truth is, if you're someone who's targeting the HVAC brick and mortar business, it's not as sexy, and there's an opportunity, there's a gap for you to come in and take advantage of that market share. But people who for some reason are just focused on their status, who don't want to go into there and serve these businesses. Okay, so in the beginning, brick and mortar businesses are by far the best ones to get into, the best ones to target in the beginning. And so what are some examples of brick and mortar businesses? Typically it's split into two sections. The first one is home remodeling, and this is actually the category I'd recommend you get into, because they're a little less educated, and I think they make more money. Depends on which specific market you get into. But they're selling, for example, HVAC businesses. Each HVAC unit that they sell, they on average charge $10K to implement for the people they're implementing it for. Okay, so these are people like roofers, HVAC, landscapers, plumbers, general home remodeling. Okay, so people who work around houses, construction, that type of business, people who provide real solid value to the markets. This is an amazing opportunity to get into. Okay, and even in 2025, where so many markets are saturated, so competitive, still there's a huge opportunity in home remodeling market. Okay, the next one is professional service providers. So people like chiropractors, dentists, law firms, realtors, accountants. These are also good businesses to get into. These are businesses where it's a real business. Okay, they're already making money. They need someone to go in and implement a predictable way to get leads, a predictable system, and that's where you come in. Okay, and so those are the two categories, but in general, brick and mortar businesses are by far the best ones to target in the beginning. And so the next thing, once you've identified your market, you need to identify what are the problems they face. The truth is that the only reason why businesses exist is because they create a valuable product or service that solves problems for people. And the more painful the problem you're solving, the more you're going to get paid in proportion to solving it. And also another thing you want to keep in mind is you want to make sure that the problem you're solving is directly correlated to how much money the business makes. So what problems are these? These are things like lead gen, lead nurture, different systems, different types of automations that mainly focuses on these two aspects right here. So getting leads and nurturing these leads, the more efficient, the more unique the mechanisms you can implement to solve these problems right here, the more you're going to get paid to solve it for people. Okay, and this is the beauty of AI. AI is so new that nobody knows what's going to happen with it. Okay, and so all these businesses are in a scramble. They know that AI is this huge revolution that's coming. It's going to change everything, and they know that they need to implement it. And if they don't implement it, then their competitor who did implement it will take their market share. And so there's a huge demand for it, and there's a huge gap in the market for people to come and supply it to these businesses. And so it's a beautiful opportunity. Will this opportunity always be here? Who knows? But as of now, it's something that needs to be taken advantage of. And so you've identified your market and the problems you want to solve for them. Now you need to structure your offer. You need to actually create a highly valuable leveraged offer to sell to these businesses, so you can charge 10, 15, even 20K upfront, depending on the problems you solve and the mechanisms you implement for the specific business. And so what do you want to avoid? Do not sell a commodity offer that only solves one of their problems. Why? Because you're going to be a slave to your business, and you can only charge 500, maybe 1.5K if you're lucky. Okay. And so what does a commodity offer look like? Well, first of all, when you choose a market, you need to identify their current situation and their desired situation. Okay, and for your market to go from their current to their desired situation, there's a gap. Okay, and there's multiple problems in between that gap. And so what most people do, people who are lazy, who don't want to put in the work up front to create a valuable business, is they only choose one problem to solve. Why is that bad? Because when you're only solving one problem, you're a general problem solver, and when you're a general problem solver, you're not unique, you're not specialized, you're not a key man, so you're easily replaceable. Okay, and when you're only solving one problem, there's actually a low probability of them reaching their desired situation. So for you to get results is very tough, and if you don't have results to flex on your sales calls in your marketing, it's going to be very hard for people to choose you over the person who solves all the problems, has multiple results, and can actually implement a valuable system that solves the problems for them. Next thing is that you're easy to copy. You're not unique. If you're only implementing one tool, then what is the real barrier to someone copying that tool and implementing it in your market and just charging less for it. Okay, you do not want to compete on price. When you're competing on price, that is a race to the bottom. Okay, that is the worst way to live. You might as well just get a normal job and live stress-free. Okay, you're also selling your time, which is not leveraged. I'm going to talk about leverage more in this video. And you cannot charge high prices, so you are not perceived as valuable. And when you're not perceived as valuable, you have to charge low prices, and it sucks. Okay, nobody wants to do that. And so what is the solution? Well, you want to structure your offer into an AI infrastructure. And what does it look like? Remember how earlier I mentioned that in between your prospect's current and desired situation, there's multiple problems that need to be solved. And instead of just solving one problem like a commodity offer would, you want to solve all the problems. Okay, and that is exactly what an AI infrastructure does. Okay, and so in result of this, you can easily charge 5, 10, 15, 20K upfront, depending on what problems you solve in the market you choose. And so, for example, there's multiple problems, and you need to implement a sequence of mechanisms and AI mechanisms in order to solve these problems. So I'm going to walk you through an example of what that looks like. So for example, let's say I chose the HVAC business, okay? And the main problem that the HVAC business has is most of them are operating off of referrals, and they don't have a predictable way of getting leads, nurturing those leads, and turning them into paying customers. Okay, and so what you can do is, for example, the first problem is lead gen. Okay, so your business is nothing without any leads. If you're not getting any attention on your business, then nothing else matters. And so how are we going to solve lead gen for this business? Well, we can help them create AI creatives. So for example, there's tools like arcads.ai that creates beautiful, fully automated AI creatives where you simply upload a script. There's multiple AI actors, and it creates these unique, appealing creatives that you can run for them. So you're solving the creative problem for them, and then you can run their ads for them. Okay, so boom, that's lead gen solved. And now once you have leads coming in, they need to nurture those leads in order to book them into an appointment and turn them into paying customers. And so how are we going to solve that next problem for them? Well, we can implement an AI voice dialer into their business to nurture all those leads and book them onto appointments. So implementing the AI voice dialer and integrating it into their business, or implementing some sort of CRM and some sort of automations and sequences into their business. So we've solved the lead gen problem, the lead nurture problem, and the third problem can be either solving their offer or implementing some more automations, or maybe you can just stick with these two, and that's valuable enough. Okay, and so don't you see the difference? For example, someone who's just selling a commodity offer would only sell one tool, like an AI voice dialer, or just one specific automation or chatbot. Okay, and that you can charge maybe $500 for it. But what you want to do is you want to take it and make that one mechanism, a part of a broader offer where you're solving the entire problem for them. Why do you want to do this? Is because you're solving every problem in the gap. What does this mean? It means you're a specialized problem solver, and it's also a higher probability of them reaching their desired situation, so you can actually get results that you can leverage to get more clients. And you're also hard to copy. Okay, and the truth is that this takes a little more effort upfront to set up opposed to this. But since it takes more effort, less people want to do it. People are lazy; they don't want to do things that requires effort. So less people are going to take you up on, are going to get into this opportunity, which means you're going to have less competition that you're competing with, which means in the long run, it's going to be easier for you to get clients because there's less competition for you to deal with. Instead of doing the easy thing where there's a bunch of people who can just set up one tool, one AI voice dialer, you're going to have a ton of competition to compete with. And the only way you can truly compete with them is by lowering your price, which is not a good way to live. Okay, and so you're hard to copy, there's less competition, and you're also selling systems that are already built. It's leverage. So for example, things like the AI creatives, these are things that you do yourself once, or maybe you can hire someone to do them, and you create SOPs and playbooks around how to do them. So that way you can plug and play it into each business, and you outsource it, later on as you're collecting more money. You can hire a fulfillment team to do it for you because you have all the systems, all the SOPs, the entire playbook created for you to simply just plug and play into more businesses. The AI voice dialer, the different CRMs, the different systems you want to implement into these businesses, these are things that you build once and you plug and play into businesses forever. So you're more leveraged, and you're not selling your time for money, which you want to avoid. Okay, and you can also charge a premium so that you can hire a fulfillment team. I recommend that you, as a founder, you want to outsource yourself mostly from fulfillment as early as you can, because you want to focus on things like creating content, selling, marketing, things that are leveraged. Okay, you don't want to outsource yourself completely from fulfillment. Of course, you want to be tapped in. You want to know what's happening. You want to still consult your clients, maybe have a few consulting calls. But when it comes to setting up the hard assets, the systems, you want to hire people who are better than you to do it for you. Okay, and so that's what you want to do. You want to avoid being a commodity at all costs and structure your offer in a highly valuable, leveraged way. Okay. And so once you've gone through those steps, once you've chosen a market, saw what problems they're solving, and you've structured, or no, what problems they're having, and you've structured an offer that solves all those problems in between their current and their desired situation, what you now need to do is to validate that offer. Okay, so this is the second most important thing you need to focus on. So once you've gone through the first steps, the next most important thing is validating your offer. How do you validate your offer? Well, it's by booking calls and selling your offer. It's very simple. And at this stage, the only thing that you should be focused on is getting attention on your offer. It does not matter what you sell, what skills you have, and how much experience you have if nobody knows who you are, what you're selling, or what your business is. Okay, so many people think, oh, I have a great offer. My clients are just going to come flocking to me out of nowhere. No, you need to spend every breathing, waking moment selling, creating content, and marketing so people can find out who you are, what your business is, and that way you can create flow and then eventually monetize your flow by hopping on calls and selling your offer. Okay, and so how do you do this? You want to implement leverage strategies. You want to focus on leverage. And what are the 4 forms of leverage? It's code, so software, capital, money, labor, people you hire, outsourcing, and then media, content. So I want to quickly illustrate this example to you as to why you need to implement leverage in your business and what's the difference between someone who doesn't have leverage and someone who does have leverage. Okay, so imagine there's 2 people racing to a finish line. One guy's racing on foot and the other guy's racing in a car. Okay, well, what's the difference? Well, the guy racing on foot, he has to put in more effort to cover less distance. So he has to physically run, move his feet, and sweat in order to cover less distance. And he has to use all his energy, and he still covers less distance than the guy in the car. And it also takes him 10 times longer to reach the finish line compared to the guy in a car. Okay, so implementing leverage equals save time. Okay, so the guy on the foot, he has to physically sweat, move his feet just to move a few feet closer to the finish line. He's sweating, he's tired, and it's going to take him longer to reach the finish line. While the guy in a car, he's in a better vehicle. Okay, he puts in low effort to cover lots of distance. Literally, for him to cover 100 feet, 200 feet, he just simply pushes his foot on the gas pedal, and that allows him to move. Why? Because he's in a better vehicle. He's leveraging something that's already built, and he's simply pushing the gas pedal with his foot to cover more distance, and he reaches the finish line 10 times faster because this guy is leveraging something that's already built. He's in a better vehicle, and it allows him to move faster with less effort. Why? Because he has more leverage than this guy on foot who has to do everything himself and is in a horrible vehicle, which is his feet. Okay, and so how do you book calls in 2025 with leverage? We need to implement a short-term and a long-term strategy, and I'm about to show you why. Okay, so when it comes to the short-term strategy, you need to make money as quickly as possible. When you're starting a business, you don't want to, you probably will have to go through years, 2 years, 3 years of just learning nonstop failure to learn all your lessons needed in order for you to be successful. But you can mitigate that with, help, mentorship programs. But you want to make money ideally as quickly as possible so your business has oxygen. Money is oxygen to your business. And so what is the short-term strategy? It's ads. Okay, ads is the quick short-term strategy. I spelled quick wrong, but it's whatever. And so Meta, when it comes to running ads, I highly recommend you run Facebook ads and Meta ads. Why? Because Meta has a ton of data, which not only means that they will put your ad in front of your ideal prospect, but also in front of the person who's most likely going to call and book a call and buy from you. This is how advanced their machine learning has gotten, and it's only going to get better. So going back to the 4 forms of leverage: code, capital, labor, and media. By far, running ads, you are leveraging code, okay, which is one of the best forms of leverage along with capital. It is a permissionless form of leverage, which means you don't have to ask anyone. The only thing you have to do is follow Meta's ad compliance, their guidelines. But other than that, you don't need permission from anyone to run ads. Okay, you don't have to wait for anyone. You can go to meta.com or their ads manager and set up a campaign and run ads right now. Okay, you don't need permission to run ads. You can put in as much money as you would like. You can put in $1 per day, or you can put in $1,000 per day. Okay, and as long as ads comply with the policy. And so pay ads instead of people. If you currently have any appointment setters sending cold DMs for you, I would like you to take that money that you're paying these people and simply put it into ads. I guarantee you that a lot more people hear and learn about your offer than opposed to you just paying these people. And if you aren't paying anyone and you're doing outreach yourself, please get a part-time job and use that money for ads. The $15 per hour that you make will allow you to reach more people than the amount of DMs you send per hour. It's all about finding leverage and implementing leverage into all your strategies and the way you run your business. Okay, and so running ads is the quick short-term strategy, but what is a long-term strategy? What is going to make the business more sustainable and going to help us grow long-term? Okay, well, it's content. Okay, content is leverage and it implements compounding growth into the business. And so I want to illustrate this another example for you. Imagine you're manually sending 1,000 cold DMs on Instagram. What are you doing? You're basically doing 1,000 smaller inputs, and this is realistically going to take around 10 to 12 hours of your time. This is low leverage. Opposed, on the other hand, where you create one YouTube video that gets 1,000 views, you're doing one bigger input that takes 4 to 6 hours of your time, and a YouTube video is going to always stay on your channel. It's going to be there forever selling for you. Okay, while these, especially in 2025, I mean, sending cold DMs on Instagram, the reply rate, the market has gotten so saturated that realistically, if you get, in any given market, 2 to 3% of people to open your message, you're lucky. Okay, back then in 2022, 2023 used to be 10 to 15%, but it's just been gotten so flooded. It's so hard to separate yourself with one little, opening message in the inbox, where creating content and building your personal brand and positioning yourself as an authority trying to help your audience instead of a marketer trying to sell something to them is so important. That we're currently in a trust recession, that if you're not creating content, your business won't be sustainable. It's just where the market's gotten, and you need to do it. Okay, you need to do it if you want your business to be able to survive long term and have sustainability. Okay, and also thing with outreach and sending cold DMs, it's linear growth. Let's say, for example, you have a 10% reply rate. For every 100 messages you send, every 100 cold DMs you send, 10 people open. Okay, 200 cold DMs send, 20 people open. 300 cold DMs send, 30 people open. Okay, that is linear. It's one on one. Okay, while with content, on the other hand, it's exponential growth. In the beginning, it might be a little slow. You might not be getting 1,000 views on every video you upload. But as you keep posting, if you stick with it for a few months, 2 months, if you can stick with it for a month and consistently post, you're already ahead of 90% of people. 90% of people quit within the first, I'd guess, maybe first 1 to 3 months because they don't see the results that they want to see. Okay, so if you can just stick with it and that in the long term it's going to serve you, then it's going to compound. Your audience is going to multiply onto itself, and it's going to become the most valuable asset not only in your business but in your life. Okay, you can sell whatever you want to them. Obviously don't scam them. But it's going to become the most valuable asset in your life. And so one input equals growth that compounds, and every great business has some sort of compounding flywheel within them. Okay, and so this is how you start selling AI infrastructure from scratch. The two main things you need to focus on is choosing a market and creating an offer that's highly valuable, and also validating that offer and getting attention on it every single day. Okay, these are the 20% of inputs that create 80% of the results, and these are the only two things you should focus on. Not learning every AI tool, not learning how to use the best CRM. These are the only two things you should focus on. Okay, and so first link in the description is to book a free one-on-one AI value call with me. If you need help, if you want this to implement it for yourself, all our strategies, all our systems that we are using to scale our clients' AI agencies for them, you can book a free one-on-one AI value call. First link in the description, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.